All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Courtney. It's great to be with you all here. Today we're going to talk about a little bit about Kyverno, of course, but also platform engineering and security. So this is my perspective of my usage of Kyverno and other implementations, other solutions I've built along my years in the industry. Right. So quickly about me, my name is Pedro. I'm based in Brazil. English is not my main language, but yeah, I'm based in Brazil. I speak Spanish, English, and Portuguese as well. I work for a bank called Itaú, and Itaú is the biggest bank in Latin America and one of the biggest in the world. I'm the lead platform engineer for our observability engineering team. So I take care of our observability solutions. I oversee our architecture and multi-cloud architecture related to observability. But I also worked a bunch on cloud security and identity security projects. So I have a bunch of migration projects. I've led a couple of adoptions to newer solutions on the cloud security landscape. And yeah, I've worked a bunch on the financial market, so I know a little bit about compliance and auditing as well, right? And I'm also a Code Cloud instructor, so I believe some of you guys already have a Code Cloud subscription. The course isn't out yet. It's going to be launched in a couple of weeks, I believe, and it's a Datadog related course. So I'd love for you guys to check it out and to give me a feedback of what you think. I'm a Microsoft MVP on cloud security and open source, and I am a Docker captain. Yeah, that's basically it. So here in the screen, you can see a little bit about me. I like soccer as as a good Brazilian, and I like being on community events. So I'll be at KubeCon in the beginning of November, and I would love to meet some of you there. All right. Fantastic. So today we're going to talk about the changes from the DevOps to platform engineer approach. I know some of you, maybe all of you, already know about this, but I think it's important for us to get a more strong knowledge on some of those topics. I want to talk about along the talk. We're going to mention centralized control. So on this move from DevOps to platform engineering, we kind of lose a little bit of freedom. The developer loses a little bit of freedom. And I want to talk about how to manage policies. And this goes along the third topic, how to manage policies on a centralized way, and how to be sure to don't slow down your developers. So to keep them happy, to keep them working the way they should, because developers are what drives the business innovations. And yeah, we have a bunch of problems once our developers find some difficulties around building their solutions and creating new platforms for our customers. All right. So I kind of meshed out some of the three middle topics. So centralized control, policy management, and the developer experience. And at the end, of course, we're talking about Kyverno. So I'm going to talk about Kubernetes and talk about a little about some side projects, some implementations issues I had, and some other stuff we've done with Kyverno on our Kubernetes clusters in our multi-cloud environments. All right. Fantastic. So first, from moving from DevOps to platform engineer, we kind of have this change on how we do stuff, so how we work. So on DevOps, we have like a bunch of you build, you run it. So we have business units, we have business teams, and they all have their accounts, they all have their environments. And I'm not even talking about providers itself. So you can have like multiple Azure subscriptions, Google Cloud projects, AWS accounts, and so on. But mainly those teams were responsible to driving innovation in their environments and keeping their data and their infrastructure safe. We had some guardrails because all companies have like security teams and they have like best practices, but we didn't have like a good way of getting security insights, security information, security guardrails to those teams in a centralized manner. So we would rely on them just applying the changes we ask, we as a security team, and this this could work. This really works actually, but this we had some. I believe you guys already had some problems with this approach as well. So yeah, it's kind of hard because we overload the DevOps engineering teams from our business units on doing security stuff, which I believe isn't what they should be doing. Right. So they should be keeping their platform reliable, available, and evolving the architecture to better help our customers and to better help the company, right? And then we move on to platform engineering. So right now we have like centralized teams that take care of the infrastructure, and not all the infrastructure itself, but they have a better management from the previous approach. So right now we have like a platform team which has access to the accounts, to the platforms, to the solutions our business teams uses. So this platform team is responsible for not only managing but also implementing controls and guardrails, as we can see on the right of this drawing. And they can use actually basically everything. So they can implement new solutions, they can implement new policies. So policy is a pretty good so it's a pretty good solution, not only Kyverno, but also priority solutions like Azure policies and Cloud Custodian, for example. Those are some good solutions for us to manage our platform and how our users use our services. And the platform team is the responsible now of applying those controls and providing the users, the developers, the feedback they need to understand why what they are doing is wrong and how they should do a new way, right? So we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but that's the main difference. So we don't pass the responsibility of applying our policies to our DevOps teams. We, as platform engineers, we have the responsibility and the access to apply ourselves. So that's the main reason. That's the main difference. And the developer teams, the business teams, they actually use some interfaces we provide. So right now they don't need to keep to be provisioning clusters and to go on write their Terraforms, and they're open to fools, for example. And right now we can basically provide them with a identity platform, with a developer platform, so internal developer platform, and they can run their services up there. So they will create clusters, they will create storages, they will create buckets of databases, and so on. So we take the responsibility out of them, and we manage ourselves, and we are able to implement the controls we need, right? So that's the main difference here. And as I mentioned here, so policy as code is always important, but once we have like centralized control over all environments, we need to be sure that we are applying the correct controls and the correct guardrails. And I believe the best way for us to do this is providing policies that we can version, that we can test it out, so we don't have like to apply the changes and see what happens. All right, so we have ways of testing our stuff. And right, so talking about centralized control, security and developer experience can be on opposite sides. So some of you, I believe, are developers. I am a platform engineer, but I also worked in development. And I know for a fact that once we start implementing security controls and with the developers don't actually understand how they work, they will try to do some workarounds and bypass our controls because it makes their life harder. And some developers might understand why we are applying those controls, and that's good. But they also might as well try to bypass the controls because, again, they aren't able to create the solution they need and to use the stuff they need. So it's important for us to create controls and to apply those controls onto their environments. But we also need to be sure that the developers aren't being affected in a way like they don't have other options. Otherwise, they need to just bypass the controls, right? So it's important for us to help our developers keep their working flowing, and of course applying our controls. So the developer experience cannot be impacted, and so talking about Kyverno, it's a Kubernetes native manifest-based policy engine. You guys already know. We can, of course, audit, mutate, and report or changes, and this is pretty good because once we apply a policy, we don't have to start mutating and blocking everything. We can start reporting, for example. and we can understand why our developers are using some kind of registry, container image registry they shouldn't be using, or why they are doing they are applying like deployments and manifests without some specific labels for FinOps and so on. So that's important. This is a pretty important feature for us. And here I'm talking about security, but also about governance. Kyverno also helps us with that, and we can. This is pretty useful because again, we can try to test. We can start testing our controls without actually applying them and impacting our end users, which are our developers, right? And Kyverno is a business helper. So once we start talking about security as business and security and platform engineer as business, we are able to collect like a telemetry data from our usage inside our clusters, inside our environments. And this helps us basically drive our decisions better and understand how our developers work again. And of course, we can provide them the best experience. We can provide them the access. We can help other platform teams. So, for example, the FinOps teams, the quality teams. So, by applying policies and getting information, getting telemetry data from those policies, we are able to drive decisions better and to help our teams to succeed into their controls. Right. Of course, it's easy to migrate, so to manage. So we have Git and versioning, and this is basically basic GitOps subject. So yeah, I don't have to go deep on that. And of course, multi-cloud. So as companies are moving towards using more than one cloud to offer a better service for developers and to offer a cheap platform for customers, it's important that we are able to apply the same standards and the same controls between cloud providers. So we don't actually care if you use AWS, Azure, Oracle, GCP, IBM, and so on. Once you use a Kubernetes is an open source platform. We are able to apply the same policies onto our clusters and to guarantee the same standards between them. So this is pretty important, right? And yeah, so we can go beyond security controls. We can gather information about our usage. We can gather information about our environments. We can understand how, I don't know, maybe you guys wanna provide or managers a centralized view of how the infrastructure is being used. We can create policies to evaluate everything that's being run inside our Kubernetes clusters. So as I mentioned, Kyverno is also a governance solution. So with its capacity to extract information from clusters and generate reports, we can help us manage different aspects of our platform. So this is pretty nice, right? So moving away of my platform engineering role, we can definitely help our managers, and we can also help our FinOps friends to better understand how the consumption of our clusters is being used, and we can also help the company to manage better their costs and manage better their environments, right? So yeah, some options different of what you guys usually do. So understand and find out of compliance environments I've worked. I had a requirement to add some labels and some annotations to my deployments, and I had like a pretty big landscape of applications. So I started using Kyverno to first get the deployments that weren't using my those labels I needed, and second to actually implement those labels so my observability solution could collect logs and metrics the right way from those objects inside the cluster, right? So yeah, again, we can move beyond security. We can go beyond security only to governing, for example, and then we can actually start seeing the real at scale benefits of Kyverno. All right, so yeah. So they are still talking about centralized control. We can, again, by using our reporting policies, we can understand, we can gather information about how our environment is being used by our developers. And we can also help our teams to reduce costs and to better manage their environment. So it's crucial for some areas to to have some guardrails applied, as I mentioned, banking and healthcare, because once like an auditing firm verifies and validates that you don't have the specific guardrails applied, the controls applied for a framework, for example, like ISO or PCI, your company might not be able to sell to your customers the products they need. So this is pretty crucial, and here we can see how not only security but also governance become part of the business, and we have to take a look on, right? So this is something to be careful about. And yeah, coming back from to security, which is my area, we can also improve the security posture. So today we have a bunch of CSPM solutions, and we have open source, but we also have like proprietary solutions like Wiz and Microsoft Defender. We can help our security posture to become better, to become stronger by applying controls. So this goes beyond only applying policy to the cloud platform itself. We can also apply controls to our clusters, and we can guarantee our clusters are a safe environment for our applications to run. All right. And yeah, so security breaches and vulnerabilities are discovered every day. We need to have control over our environment, but we also need to collect data from our applications as well. So you guys heard about the NPM exploitation a couple of days ago. So this is something we could actually start by using Kyverno to maybe identify some resources inside our cluster that are using some NPM packages or have some labels, some annotations that refer to us that is using, like, for example, a library that was affected and a component that was affected as well on this exploitation. So we're able to keep up with vulnerabilities and security breaches, and to guarantee our environment is safe, so we don't have the security team on our ears on they complaining that our environment is out of compliance. All right. And yeah, so here we have like a basic feedback loop. So a basic loop that will happen once you start using Kyverno and other policy as code solutions. So first, once you identify a necessity, you will design your guardrail. So this requires like a business team interaction, other teams interaction, so platform, security, infrastructure, FinOps, governance, and so on. So you first design your guardrail, you create your policy, you create your code, you implement it, and you see the validation first. So you understand how your environment will be affected, because you might write your policy wrong and you might block everything and get your cluster down, as I believe we're going to hear about on the next talk. So again, it's pretty crucial that you implement your policy in validation mode, so in reporting mode, and you gather information about how this policy is applying to your environment. Then you can apply your mutation policy. So you can remove labels, you can remove containers, you can add labels, you can add other stuff. You can block ports, for example. You can block specific registries, so container registries from your cluster, so your developers are not able to address the wrong image version or the wrong public registry. We usually use private registries in companies, so this is a pretty good policy as well. And then we can receive feedback. So our validation section, our validation step has to be pretty quick, because we need to remediate or issue quick again. But we also need to understand that we might have left some gap inside our policy, and we can make sure that we are close to our developers and close to our end users, so our impacted users, to see if we need to change something in the policy that isn't work for them. So it's important for us to keep that cycle running. And once we receive feedback, we can identify other gaps, we can identify other problems, and then we start the cycle again. So we create a guardrail, we create a policy, we apply the policy, we receive feedback, and so on. All right. Fantastic. So again, moving for our side of platform engineering, we also have policy management. And of course, you guys already know about GitOps. You guys already know about versioning. So yeah, moving along from Git and versioning, you have to do it. You don't need to talk more about it. I won't go into the details, of course, because I strongly believe you guys already know how versioning, of course, works, and the necessity of having everything versioned today. But yeah, so on our feedback loop, we also have to point out 4 things. So open channels for developers. So maybe create a centralized chat on your internal communication solution like Discord or Slack. So your developers can understand if there are mistakes, if they are doing some kind of mistake on their application, on their deployment, and so on. So they are able to communicate with each other and also with your platform team, so they can get the feedback they need and they can apply the changes they are requested. All right. So suggestions for new and old policies. Again, we can ask our developers to create some policy to send us some ideas of new policies. And this helps us to basically keep the platform good for them to create their applications. And again, keep them happy so they don't need to find bypasses for security controls. All right. All right. So goes both ways. So developer and platform engineers. So we, again, as developers, you guys can provide our platform engineering team on how our policies are being applied and how you are being affected. But also as platform engineers, we can also provide developers feedback on their code and their environment so they can change some stuff. So you can request them to apply some kind of a change on a service or maybe a policy on Airbox, so on and so on. So this feedback goes both ways. All right. It's important for us to don't segregate our platform team from our developer team. And of course, again, always audit first. You guys might have noticed that I've said this a couple of times because this is pretty important. We cannot go further without auditing first. So once you create a policy that you might be sure that this policy won't affect nothing else other than the needed, you apply your policy to a couple of accounts and you maybe break everything. So be sure to audit a couple of days ago, a couple of weeks ago, and understand the behavior of your environment first. So empowering our developers, feedback is more necessary than we usually think. Making developing hard, we will only motivate them to find different ways of getting the job done. So for us, it's important for us to keep our developers happy, and we can first extensively validate our policy rules. So we can test on our sandbox environments, and we can test on development environments, of course. But we can prior to actually implementing anything on the environment the developers are using, we can apply onto our own environments to see how it works. We can roll out changes to smaller groups, so this is pretty important. We shouldn't go big bang on the changes or so on the platforms. So it's important for us to maybe create a schedule of environments that we are going to apply this policy to. So we have like maybe 10 business units we can apply on the first week for the first 2, and the second week for the other 2, and so on. And we move on, growing the amount of business units we apply this policy to. And this is important for us to understand where it might cause some problem. So where we might have some damage. So if we implemented the first 2 or 3 business units, so environments, and we don't have any negative feedback, we're good to go. We apply on the next 3 ones. So we might have like a feedback negative from one of those business units, so we need to roll out this change, but we don't need to roll out the change on all the environments. We can only roll out to the specific environments that were negatively impacted after this policy was applied, right? And of course, so making sure developers understand the need of a security control. We mentioned this on the first slide of the presentation. It's important for them to understand why we are applying this control. So we're being requested by our management, or maybe a partner, like a partner company like Visa or MasterCard, and they need for us to create a new control inside our environment, and we need to apply this. So they need to understand what we are doing, what we are doing. All right. Continuously monitor and validate your policies, guaranteeing the applied rule has no loophole in it. So again, it's important for you to maybe address some of the policies you applied with with an observability solution. So like gather metrics, for example. And once you start, again, for example, if we apply the policy to restrict access to a specific container registry, for example, image registry, we need to monitor our clusters or our network to see if our cluster isn't requesting the wrong registry to download the image. So this is the only way we have actually to guarantee the applied rule has no loophole in it. And this kind of overloads the platform team, but this needs to be done because the developer might not notice. All right. And of course, write good policy. So provide a feedback for your developer once you apply the policy in your environment, in a way that once they start deploying an application through their pipeline, their CI/CD pipeline, they are able to understand what they've done wrong. So, I'm missing like a label, or I'm missing like an annotation. So a tag, a sign-up tag, for example. Provide them a clear return message so they don't overload your platform team with messages through their communication channels, right? So this is pretty important to keep the developers, to keep the freedom to the developers so they can keep working. And you guys, of course, the platform team can keep creating controls and managing their environment. And of course, here we are ending on Kubernetes as everything. So focusing only on our clusters. And again, I'm not talking about any cloud providers, any cloud provider specific solution offer. We are talking about Kubernetes vanilla. So we can, of course, replicate controls across cloud providers, so guarantee standard. Right now, everyone talks about AI and ML, so artificial intelligence and machine learning. For us, Kubernetes is becoming a good platform to run our workloads, so MCP workloads, for example. We can first control GPU usage because we know it's expensive, and we can help our machine learning team to specify the request quota and the resources quota to specific machine learning resources, right? So we can manage better our costs and, of course, our resource usage. And we can, of course, guarantee compliance data, and this again goes along some crucial infrastructure we have in the market, so financial and healthcare, for example. It's important for us to understand our governmental and standards that are applied in the industry, and we need to be sure that our environment is well governed and is compliant with those rules and those policies. All right. Comply with global standards, so ISO and PSI, I already mentioned about it. Scale reporting and make data-driven decisions. Again, you guys can apply policies along your environment. You can collect data from how the environment is being used, and we can, of course, understand better how our developers are getting their stuff done. And of course, we can provide them the best developer experience. Talking about secrets, so avoid secret exploitation. Secrets is a pretty sensitive topic, so we need to manage our secrets. We need to have a vault, for example. We need to be sure our secrets are encrypted and they are not stored in Kubernetes on basic plain text, right? So you can also use your Kyverno policies to help manage your secrets and be sure that your developers aren't doing some shady stuff that you might not notice. And at the end, of course, we have also Edge and IoT on Kubernetes. So Kubernetes has gone a long way over only allowing us to implement containers. So right now we have Knative, for example. We have KubeEdge that allows us to not only create serverless platforms, but also edge platforms inside Kubernetes. So moving to like 5G and the evolutions of telecom, we might need to provide better compute capacity on the edge, so closer to our devices and to our end users. And this is usually done by using some kind of CDN provider, for example, like Linode from Akamai. But we also have like an option to run better and most robust workloads on edge and help our self-driving cars and our devices or wearables to have a custom and a better experience on our end users. All right. So yeah, that's basically it. So I would like to thank you the opportunity. I hope you guys enjoy it. This QR code here is my there we have like here my my social media, so you can connect me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to answer your questions and to provide you with any other resources and ideas. But yeah, thanks Courtney and the whole Nirmata team for providing this opportunity. I love being here with you.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. That was really, really, really nice presentation. I think we have a couple of questions in the chat, which is great. I love the dab at the end also. Very nice. We have a couple of questions kind of spanning a very broad range of topics. One is from Mario, and he's asking, what skills are necessary to become a platform engineer? Which obviously you are very deeply ingrained in your team. So maybe you can give a little bit of insight around that for our community.
Yes, of course. So going like not only talking about hard skills, it's important for us to communicate. So we usually think I think we've overlooked a little bit on this on the past, but it's important for us as not only platform engineers but also SREs, so site reliability engineers, for us to be able to communicate in a good way with our developers and with our engineers. So we need as platform engineers, we will receive the contact and messages and emails from everybody. So not only newbies, but also experienced professionals. So it's important for us to know how to navigate between those different experience levels. So we need to make ourselves understand, and we need to make them understand what we are talking, right? And talking about hard skills, of course, we have like Kubernetes, we have cloud platforms, but I would say the main thing is know your way around a cloud platform. So you need to be able to work with not only AWS, but also GCP, but also Oracle. And you don't have to be a specialist on each of those services, but you need to know how the cross services work. So you need to know the best practices of managing storages and the best practices of managing Kubernetes clusters, databases, and so on. So I wouldn't focus, and this is not only at Itaú, of course, I believe it's on every company. You need to be sure, you need to know how to navigate between technologies, and of course, always stay up to date and understand the new versions and the new releases of the solutions you use.
Great. And we've got one more, and then we'll add Vinod to the stream and let him take over. But one more question for you. What are the top policies you use or think should be implemented in general for platform engineers?
All right. So I would say mainly talking about security, I would definitely talk about secrets. And I would definitely talk about, as I mentioned, container registries. So it's important for us that we know what's being downloaded into our cluster and what's being used into our cluster as well. But moving on from only this, we can also, this is a feature that I believe not everyone uses. But once we start building our Docker files, for example, we need to be sure, we need to see how our pods, for example, they are using if they are using like the admin user. So once we have, I believe you guys heard about runtime security. So if you use, for example, a solution like Falco or a Tetragram from Isovalent, you can check, you can see the if there in your cluster there are some exploitation techniques that your attackers might be using to leverage your pod. So your pod that is using your container that is using an admin account to get access to your host. And once it gets access to your host, you can get information about everything that's going through there. So not only network traffic, but also things that are stored in your volumes and in your disks itself. So I would also apply some policies to verify like those run as user templates on the Docker file and also on the pod manifest. But yeah, I believe I would keep only on that, because other controls are maybe too specific for your company and for your work line of work. So like healthcare, for example, and I wouldn't address those topics right now. So yeah, I would basically do those three main policies, because you will for sure create a pretty big guardrail for any threats that might come your way.
Great. Fantastic answer. Great questions. Thanks so much, Pedro, again for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we will hopefully continue to see you around the community.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for the opportunity, Courtney. Take care, guys.
Thank you.